Good evening, dear friends. For yet another Meded Trust webinar, we have assembled here, and this time we have another galaxy of speakers and very interesting topics, very different from the usual programs that we used to have. This is going to be a complex coronary intervention conclave, and this time to help us out, we have a very good panel with moderators of Dr. Armugam, Dr. Arun Prasad, Dr. Padmanabhan, and Dr. Pramod Kumar from Apollo Hospitals. We also have speakers, Dr. Ramesh, Dr. Durga Devi, Dr. Vimal Kumar, Prem Krishna, and Sri Ram. So we have a all Tamil Nadu look this time for our meeting. And without much ado, let me introduce you my co-moderators today. Dr. Armugam is Senior Consultant Interventional Cardiologist, Apollo Specialty Hospital, OMR, regular member of our meetings. Dr. Arun Prasad, again regular from Pondicherry. He's from Mahatma Gandhi Medical College and Research Institute, Associate Professor of Cardiology there. And Dr. N. Padmanabhan from KMCH Specialty Hospital, Erode. He's a Senior Consultant Interventional Cardiologist there. And Dr. KP Pramod Kumar, Senior Consultant and Interventional Cardiologist, probably the most popular cardiologist in terms of interaction with patients and patients attenders. Very popular cardiologist. With that, I think we will get into the seminar, and I will first invite Dr. Pramod to introduce the first speaker, Dr. Durga Devi. Dr. Pramod?
Yeah. I have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Durga Devi, and she is the assistant professor of and senior consultant cardiologist in Chettinad Super Specialty Hospital, Chennai. And she will be talking about unexpected left main bifurcation staining. Dr. Durga Devi, please.
Hi, I'll start sharing this.
You can start sharing now.
So I had a 50, this is the procedure which I did last year. I had a 58 years female, and hi to all the seniors and my colleagues. Good evening to all. So I had a 58 years female. Of course, she's a typical patient which we have with multiple risk factors. She had a long-standing diabetes which was uncontrolled. She was obese, hypertensive, had dyslipidemia, and she presented with ECS non-ST elevation MI, and her LV function was normal. CAG showed a triple vessel disease. So this is the angiogram. She had a discrete ostial LCX lesion, 95% lesion. The ostial LAD had a mild block, but mid LAD has an 80% lesion. The RCA was fine, except for that the PLV had a 70% to 80% lesion PLV. So this is the angiogram of our patient. So the treatment plan, doctor's first choice was CABG. My first choice was CABG, but patient's only choice was PTCA. So what's the scientific evidence? So
one second, Dr.
Yeah.
Tech, can you confirm the slides? I'm not able to see the slides.
Slides,
I can see. I can see it here, but I think the projection is not showing slides.
Now?
Yeah. Now it's. You can start playing now. Yeah. Now it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead, please.
So again, there is an ostial L6. There is a very short left main, and there is an ostial L6 lesion, which is 95%, mid LAD 80%, and PLV lesion, which is around 80%. So the treatment plan, my first choice was CABG, but the patient's only choice was PTCA. So how to go about that? The syntax score for this patient, which had a simple 3 lesions. Although it's a triple vessel disease, all of them were discrete simple lesions and complicated lesions. The syntax score is 9. And based on the syntax score 1, the 2 years data favor PCI, but the numbers which I've given is a 10-year mortality based on the syntax score 2020 data. It's a 10-year mortality with PCI. If I go for this patient, if I extrapolate with the syntax data, it is 8.7% and CABG is 8.1%. Of course, I didn't calculate all that. The patient wanted PCI. I started with that. So the mid LAD lesion, I wanted to tackle it later because ostial is going to be difficult, and the left main is short. I know things can go wrong, so I've started with 2 wires. This is a JL 3.5 guide, and I've used a femoral approach. So 2 BMW wires, I ballooned with a 2 into 12 mm, 15 mm stent first to the L6. I mean, pre-dilated the L6 ostial lesion. So I've taken a postcard to position the stent, which is an Onyx Resolute stent, 2.75 into, I think it's a 22 mm stent. I've positioned it after extreme care, but the patient had a different plan, and she has helped in a different way. She took a deep breath while I was trying to deploy the stent, and my stent is in the left main. Okay, my stent is from the left main to L6, and there is a block shift and the ostial. Exactly when I was deploying the stent, I should have informed the patient before, but she took a deep breath, and that's how my stent landed in left main to L6. So there is an ostial block, which is 30%. There is a block shift. There is some block shift. Now I'll have to tackle the ostial LAD also. So the check angio shows now because of block shift. Maybe I didn't do FFR at that time, but there is a definite block shift, and I can't ignore that ostial LAD block shift for now. So I've taken another wire, crossed the L6 stent at the last strut possible. So to have a good outcomes and good anatomical results, I've taken crossed the L6 stent into the LAD through the lost strut, and I've removed the first wire. So, and I've ballooned it. I've not put the videos of the balloons. So I've ballooned, pre-dilated both the ostial and the mid and proximal lesions. So I've taken 2.75 into 38 mm stent. I've positioned the stent exactly at the ostium 1 mm into the L6 stent, so that the apposition of the carina is fully covered. So this, I've just pulled it a little bit more inside. And after this, after deployment, I've deployed the LAD stent and completed the bifurcation. So bifurcation in left main, generally, it is preferable to use a single stent approach, or you have to go for a crush or this one. Finally, I landed up doing a tap stenting because this was not a planned bifurcation stenting. So after this, I did some post dilatation. This is a 3.5 into 12 mm because the L6 is bigger than the LAD. I've done the post dilatation of the LCX. And of course, the LAD lesions, I've done that. And I've completed with a kissing balloon dilatation of the LAD and L6 from the beginning of the stent. See, I couldn't go for a POTS because the left main is hardly 4 mm, and the biggest and the smallest balloon I had is an 8 mm. So POTS is not possible. The left main is not of a big dimension. I used a 3.5 mm balloon in the L6 and 2.2 balloon in the LAD. So the left main dimension came and went at low pressure. So that left main dimension became something like around 5 mm. So I could complete this, and the final result is this. So if you can see, there is one image where there is a stent boost. You can see that there is one strut of the LAD stent which is inside the L6 stent. So the carina is not missed, and the outcomes are perfect. And this is the LAD, and is also perfect. So this is another view, caudal, and I'm happy with the results, and patient has been doing fine. And of course, she's on Brilinta and Equisprint Act. Follow up, she came back with some chest pain because some neighbor had atypical chest pain, neighbor had corona. So I did a check angio just in case. And of course, I'm maintaining her HbA1c at 6.8, BP is less than 120/80, and LDL is less than 50. And she has been she is taking all her precautions and good complaints to drug therapy. So the follow-up angio, this is I did recently. There's a follow-up angio of this patient. LAD, it's perfect, and of course our L6 stent is also fine. And so the left main is doing perfectly all right. And I've not touched the PLV because it's this is the check angio that we have now. The PLV lesion has not progressed, and it's a small 2 mm vessel. So I'm just managing it with medical management for now, and she's fine. I couldn't do IVUS because I've not planned anything. This happened all of a sudden. So, and she's doing fine. I think the results are fine. Thank you.
You can stop sharing, Dr. Durga.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we'll let your classmate, Dr. Vimal, ask some questions for you.
Anybody, any questions are welcome.
Vimal, unmute yourself. Pramod?
Yeah, no, I am very happy to see the result, but it is, I think patient has done a good job in this because I think she has measured the left main length and took the breath. That's exactly the size of the stent inside the left main is,
No, whatever she does, I was prepared to manage. Still, okay, I should have, from then on, I've always now, while deploying stent, I tell my patients, okay, just don't take a deep breath. Okay, at least from this patient, I've started telling my patients not to take a deep breath when I put a stent in the ostium, at least.
Arun?
Isolated osteal stenting of LCX has a very bad long-term results, and it has a high propensity for restenosis. So the patient has done good for herself. So left main.
No, I've done a good job for my patient. I'm keeping all the parameters within normal. I've done a good procedure.
Yeah, it's a combo work. One patient.
See, the
results are excellent. The results are excellent.
You.
And,
thanks.
Well managed case.
Thank you.
I
had a proper bail of
Yeah, good evening, Durga. How are you?
Hi, sir. I'm fine.
Okay.
How are you?
So I think the patient helped you because sometimes we are hesitant to do always LM standing. Now we started doing a lot. No, but like initial days.
No, sir, I don't do a lot, sir. It's only emergencies or
no. That's why
like
we started learning by emergency doing that. Expect the unexpected thing. So as Dr. Arun said, no, actually that osteal LCX, that's it's not a circular shaped actually. So whatever we stand put now, the osteal restenosis is high. And I have doubt actually. The stent is like even something 8 millimeter. You have a balloon mean also 4 millimeter LM also. I think it is going to be protrude into the aorta only. It is not going to do a harm actually. So something like vessel you have proximally, you are going to dissect or something.
Yeah.
But because otherwise sometimes when we take the another wire to LED, it can go behind the struts. So it can create a problem. So I don't think that should not be a reason to post dilate after L6 LM stenting. Yeah.
Actually, the left main stent is well within the ostium. In aorta osteal treatment, we have to keep at least 2-3 mm inside the aorta. So in case if I do a POTS with that, I could have easily dissected the edge of the stent I could have caused an aortic dissection. It's very much possible. My stent was not well within the aorta. If my stent was inside the aorta by 1 or 2 mm, I would have definitely done POTS. My stent was just inside the left main by 1 mm or something. It is well inside the ostium. I don't want to do the risk and dissect the aorta because that could be it's just an expectation. So things may go wrong. So I was
still
careful.
Actually like you think that how much you did that 3.5 na LC stent or 3?
Yeah, 3.5 plus 2. So it is 5.5 into the
even you 4.5 also if take NC mean, it is not going to dissect actually because otherwise there is a chance that
there is a chance. Yeah,
because a very short left main. Again going behind the struts and again it will become very chaotic. So it's well managed. There is no doubt about that actually. Okay, good actually.
Arumugam stole my question. Now I have 1 or 2 small questions on that. One is, what is your size of your LAD originally? What did you think? LAD was bigger or the circ was bigger? It's a non-dominant.
Circ was bigger. Circ was bigger.
Circ. Why is it big? LAD obviously should have been bigger.
Yeah, it had a diffuse disease as expected in a diabetic. It had a diffuse disease.
LAD should probably ostium. There must have been some disease because the
there was disease.
Not the ostium. The plaque shift was extending beyond the ostium. That's why you had taken such a long stent into the LAD. I don't know why you had gone so long into that. It's a very
sir. Mid LAD had a lesion of 80%.
You tried to cover it and the whole.
Yeah, I covered that. Yeah.
Fine. So the stent in LAD was 3 millimeter. Now why?
No, 2.75. Both. I've used a similar size stents both in LAD and LCX.
What happens is you have gone up to 3.5 in the circ.
Yeah.
Subsequently.
Yeah.
So why didn't you use a 3 stent?
I've post-dilated LAD with a 3 mm stent, and then I've taken for kissing balloon inflation, I've taken a 3.5 in L6. Just to make the ostium of L6, the ostial portion of L6 look bigger for me, so I've taken a 3.5 and 2. Just for kissing balloon inflation, I've taken that.
Now,
higher size in L6.
It's a roundabout question I'm asking you. The question that I actually wanted to ask you was what Arumugam stole from me. But why didn't you do the left main? You can still do it. You know what?
No. I have done the left main.
Let me finish. What you could have, if you thought that the stent was not up to the ostium, you could have culotted the stent from the LAD and pulled it up to the ostium and done a post-dilatation. Because LAD, the left main, you could have pulled it up to the ostium of this thing, and you could have used an 8 millimeter balloon, done an ostial flare simultaneously with the pot.
No, sir. This becomes something like both pots and kissing simultaneously, because I've used this 3.5 mm stent. The dimension of lift main must be hardly 4 or 4.5. See, I've not used an IVUS, so I can't prove. We can just, discuss like blindly, because there is no way I can prove this.
When you are very simple, you have your dimension calculation. Based on that, if you have a 3.5 mm of circ, which you are boldly able to do, LAD left main has to be at least 4.5.
Yeah, that's why I've while doing kissing, I started from the first thread.
What both Armugam and me are trying to tell you is the same thing. You could have still gone for a higher inflation.
Okay, fine.
Ultimately, 1 year you have shown that nothing has happened to the patient. Lucky, that's not an issue. But basically, when you do it, you could still go ahead with another pot there. Nothing will happen, because it's unfortunate that the stent came to the left main for the benefit of the patient, and ultimately everything is fine. But still go ahead with a higher pressure. Don't leave the left main. That's more dangerous.
Yes, sir. The left main was dilated up to 5.5. That's what I achieved. So because while doing kissing, I started from the first thread of the left main, because it's very small space there. So from the left main only I did kissing. From the first thread of the left main stent only I've done kissing. So kissing both the balloons, like 2 plus 3.5, the left main became 5.5 in the process.
I have one more comment to make. And whenever you are planning for a ostial circ or ostial LAD, if the other vessel is having a disease, first we have to address the disease, because the ostial positioning, after that stenting the ostial and going through the stress into the other vessel and then stenting in the mid part will be difficult. Always it's better to do a mid delay in this case first and then proceed with the ostial LCX.
Actually, it's not an unexpected lift main bifurcation. I expected something might go wrong with that 2 mm, 3 mm lift main, so I stented the ostial LCX first.
I think
so it's like there was some expectation. Okay, something might go wrong. Okay.
You can say you're a visionary there. I can't give you only
no, sir, nothing like that.
I think we'll move on to the next case.
Yeah, sure.
So,
thank you.
Armugam, can you introduce Dr. Vimal for his next case? Armugam, you have to unmute and talk.
Okay, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Vimal Kumar. He is regularly presenting in our meet. He is working in a public health center as a senior consultant cardiologist and interventionalist, and he has completed his MD General Medicine and DNB Medicine and DNB Cardiology. Dr. Vimal, you can proceed now.
Thank you, Armugam, sir. Sir, still I am not a senior consultant. I am junior only.
If you're presenting in our forum, you naturally become senior. We educate, we graduate you, don't worry.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So, good evening to all. Today we are going to see a 27 years old male having recurrent coronary syndrome. So, first, a 28-year-old male, he was admitted with chest pain of 5 hours, and he was initially admitted near a hospital in Melmarutur. He was thrombolized with STK and referred for further management. He had a past history of similar chest pain and treated with primary PCI, and he is taking dual antiplatelets. He is not a diabetic or hypertensive. He is occasional smoker. Actually, before first primary PCI, he is a chronic smoker. Then he reduced it, and he is occasional alcoholic. His father is having diabetic and chronic kidney disease. On investigations, patient having ST elevation MA, anterior MA, he was thrombolized outside. Echo shows anterolateral wall hyperkinesia with mild DMR and LV ejection fraction of 42%. Troponin was positive. Other routine blood investigations were normal, and angiogram was done. Angiogram shows from osteoproximal segment of the lady was occluded. There is no flow over the stent. RCA was normal. There is some flow via the collaterals to the LAD. So there is a failed lysis, and he was previously stented with a 3 into 22 millimeter drug-eluting stent deployed in LAD. Then he stopped regular smoking, but still he told he smokes occasionally, but taking aspirin 75, clopidogrel 75, and atorvastatin 20 mg, a combination tablet, and a ramipril of 2.5 milligram. PC was planned on next day due to affordability issues and logistic reasons. Femoral approach and JL 3.5 gauge was taken, run through coronary wire, 2 wires taken, and he was initially dilated with 2.5 mm balloon. So regular run through our cath lab wire was taken. With the difficulty, it entered, and the guide position was not giving support. We are taken JL only because it's a short left main. So another wire run through coronary wire was parked in the LCX. Then only getting a little support. He was first initially dilated with 2.5 mm balloon. Balloon gives good expansion, and flow is started there in the LAD. Some flow was obtained, but we have used a lot of nicorandil intracoronary to get the flow. Then after pre-dilatation with the 2 balloons, 2.5 and 3 mm balloons, another stent was deployed. This previous stent was 22 millimeter. This stent was started from the STM, and it's 3 into 33 millimeter stent, which was deployed in 14 atmosphere with 25 seconds, and post-dilatation was followed by done. .5 balloon was used. So after that the results were good, and the patient was strictly instructed not to take any smoking or other things, and the antiplatelets were changed to prasugrel. And though he came with nearly a 1 year, the possibility of clopidogrel resistance also thought, so change it to prasugrel. And the stent was previously Endeavor Resolute was given, so we changed the stent to Zinspring. And some data showed there is some good outcome of smoking with MI, but it's a pseudo paradox. Because of the age, it shows some good outcomes because of the MI. So actually the recurrent myocardial infarction after primary PCI, usually the long-term results were not good. There is increased risk of death, stroke, and bleeding. This patient is doing well, and he is now on regular follow-up and recently married. Without any chest pain, anything is doing well. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, Arun, go ahead.
Yeah, imaging is the ideal thing in this case, because any device failure, in the sense stent, we have presumed it's a clopidogrel resistance. Good. There is no good atherosclerotic burden in these vessels. Only the osteal LAD, which was already thrombosed, has rethrombosed. We don't know why. Whether the previous stent has underexpanded, or what is the reason for the late stent thrombosis, whatever he has, that we have to analyze. So anyhow, the job done was good, but we have to wait and watch how he progresses, because this patient, practically we don't do any assay for clopidogrel resistance, but we'll wait and watch whether he has any prothrombotic state or something like that. One proven prothrombotic state is having is smoking. Other than that, 28-year, why he should have recurrent MI? That's a question lingering up.
Imaging, we are unable to do, sir, because of cost constraints, and it was done under scheme. So
yeah, it's I know the cost constraint, but certain cases he's quite young and it's a recurrent event and already device in situ, stent in situ. So it's an ideal case for analyzing it,
sir,
because we will throw light why the patient is going for issue.
definitely it will show the previous stent is not expanded or not. We can't tell with this, sir.
Arumugam?
Yeah. Good presentation, Dr. Vimal. I have few doubts really. Actually, this previous anterior MI, again anterior MI thrombolysis, it was a bit confusion because already pre-existing changes was there. It was thrombolysis, of course, outside. So whether to take it as STEMI or NSTEMI, that was a confusion. We need to have a previous ECG first. Suppose it's NSTEMI, mean like, okay, patient is quite stable because even 24 hours. Stent thrombosis, like acute stent thrombosis, they will behave very badly actually. So I think chronically some lesion must have been there actually. So slowly occluded and suddenly some plaque rupture could have happened. As Dr. Arun told, probably the mechanism of stent thrombosis, that would help actually. I don't think that size would be of a 3 millimeter. Last time also, I think previous stent was 3. Even it was not post dilated from your history. Probably stent under expansion could have been a reason. That's the case, means simple post dilatation with a higher NC balloon. That would be the simple management. We need not put on another stent actually. Another was the patient was so stable. I don't know about echo, like either 1 year old it was like MI, whether some scarring, thinning, whether it's worth, because patient is quite stable, mean we can do a viability study. Really, it's worth it doing because you're going to do that. So suppose still it's viable. Another option also probably we should discuss, since it's still a young patient. Okay, we generally prefer to go for redo PCI with the proper all imaging. I understand your limitations in your center and patient affordability. Still, there's another option we are coming with, like minimally invasive CABG. Young patient, generally we prefer to go for PCI, but some of the patients, like when they present with the again, means still you are suspecting some prothrombotic state and clopidogrel resistant. Just think about minimally invasive CABG with 1 graft. Small lesion will be there. It won't be a sternotomy. That's also should keep in mind actually. Anything,
sir? The patient was actually advised for CABG. We told already one stent we put, and young patient it's failed. So we advised him for CABG only, and surgeon, everybody is willing to do it with even with constraints.
They will be willing because 1 graft is easy for them. But I think we should offer for a minimal investment.
Yes, sir. They are known to the surgeon also. But the problem,
young age,
their family.
Yes, sir. Married.
Unmarried. Before, after the second stent, after 1 year only, he got married. They told they don't go for CABG. And,
no, he has done a good decision. Stenting is good. He has done a good decision.
Yeah, now the results are good. That's okay. Only thing little was.
See, most of the ISRs I manage with stenting, sir. I mean, but if there is a very difficult lesion, there is an under expansion, if it's a difficult ISR, not yielding to OP and NC, then we advise surgery. So it's not like ISR should always be managed by surgeons. So we are good.
No, not always. I'm telling about this patient, young patient, no calcification. It's not a complex lesion.
Yeah.
First, just like throw some
my
light.
Husband says he's a cardiac surgeon. No, he says you don't give one case also to me. You always do it yourself.
No, it's a hard team approach only. Not necessarily like we should be competitive actually.
No. Okay. Whenever I can't fix it, I'll give it to you.
Pramod, your comments?
Yeah.
No, it's a Vimal, I think you have done a good job. I'm quite. The only question is how long to give dual antiplatelets. All those issues has to be sorted out. In this kind of cases, because you'll have to put him on this. And you didn't want to use ticagrelor. You wanted to use only prasugrel.
Sir, I thought he may skip the tablets, the BD dosage he may skip. So I feared and started on prasugrel. And
okay.
I have one point here. recurrent myocardial infarction, young fellow. Okay. So he's actually a candidate for long-term dual pathway inhibition. 1 year later, put him on 2.5 milligram twice a day of rivaroxaban along with aspirin 100 milligram. He's actually ideal for that. You should do it. And another important thing is, what is your statin strategy? How much of rosuvastatin are you, or atorvastatin are you giving?
This time he is on 40 mg, sir. More than 1.5 years. Rosuvastatin 40 mg.
Rosuvastatin 40. Make sure he takes rosuvastatin 40. Recurrent MI, try to get the LDL cholesterol to less than 40/30. You have to. If you don't add ezetimibe, don't hesitate. Bring it on, because otherwise he's going to come back to you again. Now, you have a short focal area of instant retinal. What is the original stent size? Any idea?
22 millimeters, sir. 3 into 22 millimeters.
22. And this time, what was the stent?
3 into 33.
3 into 33. Did you at any point?
Post dilated with 3.5.
0.5. So 322, 333, post dilated, all fine. Now, did you consider a drug-eluting balloon at any point? Was it also scheme? Scheme means drug-eluting balloon is out. You only have the stent.
It's done under CM.
The drug-eluting balloon is more expensive than the stent, because stent is under price control and this is not there. Because use a cutting balloon, use a drug-eluting balloon if you have a good result. But all these are limitations. Is going to be the imaging. Without the imaging, it's going to be very difficult to come to any conclusion there. Now, that's another possibility. Dr. Padmanabhan has joined us. Any comments?
Yeah. Good evening. Very nice presentation. I think maybe the undersized stent is the cause for this. The next time he would have probably gone with a bigger stent, 3.5. Instead of putting the same stent and post dilating it, I feel the size of the stent could have been bigger and then post dilate.
Sriram, you want to say something?
Yeah, sir. One thing in always recurrent ASCs in the young, we should definitely go for, especially had time. I know he has some financial constraints and other things. First thing will be imaging. So especially when last PSA was a primary PSA, usually there will be a thrombus burden. So there will be a definite late stent malapportion for all these late stent failures. Rather than stent expansion, there must have been a thrombus which got resolved, the due course of his 1 year. And there might have been a late stent malapposition which would have caused this event. Or maybe might have been an insignificant plaque in the proximal artery which would have got ruptured, as Arumugam sir said. Definitely imaging would have helped. And as you said, sir, definitely I would have put this patient on a low dose of oral anticoagulant, at least for the ensuing year, and then later on assess the risk factor control and other things before I switch on to the DAPT regimen.
This is your long-term plan. Even if he gets married, don't worry. Put him on dual pathway inhibition. Take it from the dowry. Right? Okay, fine. I think we'll move on with the next case. I think we'll invite Arun. You can introduce Dr. Ramesh is here, I think. So I think we can go ahead with Dr. Ramesh presentation. Arun? Arun Prasad, you can introduce.
Yeah, sure. So it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Ramesh. He's associate professor in SRMC Chennai, and he's an elegant operator. And with this introduction, we'll go on to his presentation. Yes, Dr. Ramesh.
Yeah, thank you very much for the introduction. My case is not very complex. It is very straightforward and simple. Only thing it is related to a COVID patient. So I share my slides. So my patient was a 54-year-old male. I had COVID in the month of April, and he came to me in the month of May with the exertional angina. So what we have seen is many patients after COVID, they come with ACS. And last year we had a small study of around 500 patients, out of which nearly 20% of the patients had a COVID-related myocardial infarction or acute coronary syndrome. And this patient is the same. He came to my clinic with exertional angina. So initially we advised angio. He was not ready for that, and he continued to be on medications. And then because the pain was persistent, and his daughter also was a medical professional, so then he got convinced for angiogram because of persistent angina. Echo was normal. ECG was showing a biphasic T inversion. We went to V6 almost. No wall motion abnormality, and cardia 3 was negative. And this was a right coronary shot that was a non-dominant RCA, and left shot showed, I think you can appreciate that there was a TB2 flow in diagonal, and there was a tight lesion in mid LAD. And circ also was a dominant circ, and it had almost a 60% lesion in the proximal and OM all bad. So we had two options. So this was a circ again angiogram picture. This was the right cranial view, and here Sinta score was around 21. Not much of calcium. FFR of circ we did, it's around 0.82, so not tight borderline. So we decided to go ahead with the PCA to LAD, and we thought culprit vessel probably was diagonal and under IVS guidance. And this is the LAD, and we crossed the LAD lesion with run through. Because the LAD was very tight, it was not allowing the IVS catheter, so we pre-dilated the LAD lesion with 1.5 balloon. And this time the patient started developing chest pain. So we are wondering what was the cause. So maybe the IVS is obstructing the flow. So we did the IVS, completed the IVS run. And this is after pre-dilatation. So still the flow was there, but what to surprise, the diagonal flow stopped. So actually we didn't wire the diagonal, or we didn't do anything during the LAD. And this was the LAD run, IVS. This is probably distal, and now the tightest part of the medial lesion is seen. And you can see it's predominantly fibrous block with the calcium in the 9 o'clock position. And this is the tightest part which we pre-dilated. And there was a calcium probably in the almost 120 arc was there. And this is probably the diagonal. And, this was the proximal part of the LAD. And the circ joints, and this is the left main. Left main also was showing plaque. And this was the middle LAD lumen area. So we got around 2.5, and this was the proximal reference area. It came around 7.6. So then we wired the diagonal, and we pre-dilated the diagonal proximal segment. And then we decided to do a bifurcation strategy. So we thought because of the ongoing pain and slight hemodynamic instability, we went ahead with the mini crush technique. We are preparing the bed for the LAD stent. So you can appreciate here two stents are there, one in the diagonal and the other one in the LAD. And the LAD stent coming almost to the ostium. So what we did, we first dilated the diagonal stent. So now this is a LAD stent, and we are positioning the LAD stent bang on the ostium, and LAD stent is open. Then what we did is recross the diagonal, and then we did kissing balloon dilatation. So after recrossing, we just opened studs with the 1.5 balloon which we used initially. And this is the final kissing balloon. And LAD stent was smoothened, and this was the final result. And this was the final IVS run post-stenting. stents were well opposed. And this was a distal reference, and this was a stented area. Proximal reference, it came around 7.7. So this was a 50-year-old gentleman who had a post-COVID, had diabetic patient. He's a diabetic patient with a multivessel disease, but syntax score was normal and CIRC was, FFR was negative. So we decided to do a D1 LAD stenting with the bifurcation strategy. That was a mini-quest technique which we used, and the final result was acceptable. And now it's open for discussion.
Was D-dimer high in this patient?
Ramesh, you can stop sharing.
Slow.
His IVS gives almost like a grinder sound.
I think the background AC sound.
You can stop sharing your screen. Press the red stop sharing. And Arun wanted to know the D-dimer. Yeah, you can go ahead and give your comments, Arun. I think he's not.
In this scenario, if D-dimer was quite high, means post-stenting, how to go about with the DAPT, whether it's a anticoagulation versus in addition to DAPT, how to go about, sir? This is my question. Because the event rate is quite high if D-dimer is persistently elevated.
Arun?
Yes, sir. Actually, this is really COVID-related or atherosclerotic. That's the first question, because patient has got COVID, we need not take into the account that it is COVID-related. You see the other vessels. You see the vessels also RCA everywhere. It's a diffuse disease there. Probably, I think it's almost long time back. COVID happened about more than a month. As I said, maybe D-dimer could help, but I think we should treat as primarily as atherosclerotic disease. 20 years diabetic and hypertension, definitely more than like COVID-related atherosclerotic. I feel I would still go for a dual antiplatelet agents only rather than anticoagulant, because I don't see much thrombus also, no ectasia, and nowhere thrombus also. Like even actually pulmonary CT, I don't know what it shows. Probably mildly symptomatic COVID must be. So that's what I would go for an dual antiplatelet, aspirin plus prasugrel or ticagrelor. Being a diabetic, this antiplatelet would help actually. So one thing actually, that procedure, I don't understand whether after final kissing dilatation, whether pot was done, because he didn't show that one. But,
I just cut short the presentation.
Okay. But anyway, IVS wise, you have shown a good results. There is no doubt about that. And probably after a plain balloon dilatation of diagonal, sometimes we see that whether flow is okay. It's occluded, mean okay, we have to stand. You've done nano crush or
mini crush one?
Oh, mini crush one. Okay, finally it's a good result since you had imaging backup, so you can confidently come out actually. And I think even if I can't afford, not affordability now issue actually, because ticagrelor, prasugrel also very not costly nowadays. So that would good, because imaging that gives more confidence that.
Yeah, definitely. So based on angio alone, many times we are really not sure whether there is a thrombus or tissue prolapse or dissection. But IVS we are very much sure. So once IVS is normal, so we can come out.
What was the cause for that diagonal occlusion? Because it was not dilated, no?
No, that's what we were very much surprised actually, because I actually what I did, I was cross the wire in LAD, and then I was trying to do an IVS after a pre-dilatation of the tight lesion. But the patient was complaining of pain, and there was ST elevation lead 1, and I was wondering, because LAD flow is reduced, he is having pain. Then after pre-dilatation, then I pulled out the IVS catheter without weaving, and then even then he was complaining of pain. Then we were seeing what was the cause. Then LED diagonal was totally occluded, and even before also in angio itself we can appreciate there was a TIMI2 flow in diagonal.
Okay.
So probably that was a culprit in this fellow.
Maybe while taking sometimes wire, sometimes the tip can injure the ostial diagonal. That's also slowly within a few seconds to minutes can cause thrombosis and occlusion. That's another possibility, like before dilatation happens. Okay, good results.
Well handled, actually very well handled. Padmanabhan, any comments?
Yeah, good evening, Ramesh. Very nice presentation. Diffusely diseased lady. I also feel there is a disease in the mid lady. I'm not able to see clearly. Is there a disease in the mid also?
Actually,
just a spasm.
Actually, also it was not free of disease. We actually found out a place where we can place a stent.
Landing zone, not.
It's a diabetic.
You could have wired the diagonal beforehand if there is a diffuse disease, even if it was there was no disease in the ostium of the diagonal. When there is a long diffuse, you could have wired it even beforehand.
So I thought the LED is more important. First I wired LED, and I think simultaneously I should have wired the diagonal also.
What was the size of the stent in the diagonal? 2.25.
Yeah, diagonal was 2.25 and LED was, I think we went with the 2.5 and then we post-dilated up to 3.
A long diagonal, no? So generally in the long diagonal, 2.25, you can just wire it before, you can jail it. Okay. Nice, good case.
By IVS, he showed, I think 3.57 something was there. I think probably he could have post-dilated with the 3.5 or 3.75 balloon, the proximal LED one.
Proximally, yeah. But we went with only 3.
But he had a 2.5 balloon, no? 2.5 stent. What stent was that?
It was Onyx.
I don't know how much you can go up with Onyx, but in a Xience, generally you can go 1 millimeter up.
We can go up
bigger stent.
2.25. So 2.5 you can go up to 3.25. And 3 can go almost 3.75 to 4. So it goes up to 1 millimeter more. Onyx, that is advantage.
Yeah, larger the stent's diameter, we can go more.
Yeah.
Supposed to be taken 3.5, sometimes we can go up to 4 also.
Yeah.
Sorry, 5 also. 3.5, 1.5 up to 1.5 we can go. Maybe smaller the diameter, maybe up to 1 we can go, 1.25.
Generally, Xience goes up to 1 millimeter. That's very clearly 1 millimeter there. But Onyx probably in the 3.5 you can go up to 5. That has been shown. That even larger stent, what you had sent has been shown. But actually, he has handled it well. I didn't expect a diagonal problem. Once you had the problem, he had an imaging there to show that his results were good. The only question about your dual antiplatelet therapy, post-COVID, such a long time, so much of diffuse disease, dual antiplatelet, like what you're saying, Arun, I think Armugam said, I think is fair enough. And antithrombotic therapy, if you want to give, D-dimer is not going to be very useful there. It's a very non-specific marker there for even anticoagulation. So I wouldn't be very keen on talking about anticoagulation in this case at all. Don't confuse the matter. Keep it simple. Pramod, any comments here?
No, I agree with you, Prabhakar. I will treat most it as a atherosclerotic disease rather than a post-COVID thing. So the strategy should be, same as what we do regularly for atherosclerotic disease.
Great. So I think he's made a bifurcation forced. We have seen 2 forced bifurcations, one by deep breath and one by ischemia. So 2 bifurcation stentings we have seen, 1 recurrent ACS. Now let's see what's coming up next. I think next presenter is going to be Dr. Prem Krishna, and we'll invite Dr. Padmanabhan to introduce Prem.
Yeah, good evening, sir. Dr. Prem Krishna is an associate professor of cardiology, PhD Institute of Medical Sciences, Coimbatore. Okay, over to you, sir.
Yes. Yeah, good evening, sir. So,
good evening, Prem.
Yes,
go ahead.
I think somebody has to stop sharing. Yeah. Sir, I think Ramesh sir has to stop sharing.
It's done, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
It's done.
Okay. So yeah, I'll be showing one case of an antegrade CTO here. So this my patient is a 14-year-old male who had an effort angina of class 3 for past 1 year, diabetic and hypertensive under control, non-smoker, and ECG showed LVH and no other STT changes, and echo did not show any wall motion abnormality. Actually, I had kept him on medical therapy for quite some time because being an effort angina, and I just usually put them on a medical management as far as possible, and that too being a preserved LV with the CTO, which was the angio which was done outside, initially showed a proximal segment CTO with a very faintly filling homocollaterals. The problem was the RCA was a severely diffuse disease, which was absolutely non-revascularizable, and hence it was just revascularization narrows down to just a single vessel disease in this patient. I'm not showing the RCA shot because it was absolutely of no value, because no collaterals from either from the main vessel or from the selective injection of the conus also. So this was the spider view, which shows almost a proximal segment occlusion of the LAD, and with a large septal which is just astride the CTO segment. So the JCTO score was somewhere between 2 to 3 because it was a non-tapered tip and calcification possible. I'm not able to assess it fluoroscopically. And the problem was a more than 45-degree bend, and it appeared as a long segment occlusion, and it's a first attempt. So score was somewhere around 2 to 3. Now the challenges which I had in this case is I don't have any retrograde channels from the RCA, and there's a large septal which is astride the CTO. So every time my wire will just slip into the septal, and this angulation is somewhat 45 degrees, which is up facing, and only wire escalation antigrade strategy is possible. Now, if I somehow mess up this antigrade channel and then there's no other option, I have to reattempt later on. So I even gave him the choice of Lima to LAD for him being an effort angina with the preserved LV, but he was only for a PCA. So with all this explanation, and I just proceeded for an CTO PCA with the 7 French. I just took a 7 French access through femoral artery approach. And initially, like the routine, I just took an SI carabel with a cyan blue, which just initially just directed into the septal so that I could change the, take the CTO wire. Now, this is a small, generally we don't do this microcatheterization because I don't have any access to assess the distal. As here you can see that bend which is seen, which is facing up, not much of information which I was able to get from that. So I directly decided to proceed with the Gaia 1 wire, and this was the Gaia 1, which I mean did not give much of it was of not much help. Then I succeeded in penetrating the proximal cap with the Gaia 2 and with the microcatheter support. So once I crossed it, I just advanced the microcatheter a little bit further just to see what's there distally. I then again injected another shot, and now I'm able to find out the distal LAD vessel. The problem is there's another second segment of a possible CTO here astride the second diagonal here. So that is another problem now. So what I did was I didn't want to use since I penetrated the proximal cap, I thought I'll take a field XTA to cross the remaining segment, and with great just manipulation slowly, and I succeeded in crossing this the entire segment of CTO. So then after this crossing, it was okay, fine. Still, if you see here, despite being a femoral approach, the guide was a little bit backing up because this segment of CTO was a very hard one. So what I did was I didn't, in fact, exchange the wire. Once my XTA crossed down, I just made it into a small loop, always having an eye on the distal wire tip, so that I thought, okay, I'll just complete the procedure because it starts slipping out. So then I used a serial dilatation of the CTO balloons. I used this Ikaguchi balloon, which was a very small profile balloon. So 1x8, then serial dilatation 1.5x10, and then 2x10. And finally, it was a very calcific lesion there. So then I used a 2.5x10 OPN balloon. So after balloon dilatation, there's a good segment of vessel which is seen down and almost. So what I did is I stented the mid segment with a 2.5x33 millimeter Zions expedition and post dilated with a 3x12 balloon, and then finally took the same stent balloon. I just used it to dilate proximally, and then I completed the proximal one with a 3.5x28 mm Zions expedition overlapping stents, and finally post dilated with a 3.75 balloon. So ultimately, distally, I just dilated with 3 and the proximal just a 3.75, and I got a good results with the safe distal. There's no distal perforation here. So after this final shot and just before removing the wire, this was the pre-procedure angio, and this is the post-procedure angiogram. So we routinely do OCTs in our center. So I just did most of the cases, I just do a post-run here. And here the post-run OCT showed well opposed stent studs with no major malopposition anywhere. And as you can see with the white line of expansion. And most of the areas, my expansion was almost achieved close to 100%. So as per the Illumin 3 criteria, which was fulfilling the expansion percentage, and there's no major malopposition as you can see here. So that's the end of the story, sir. So awaiting your comments from the seniors, sir.
You can stop sharing, Prem.
Sure, sir.
Yeah. Let's start with Dr. Pramod.
Yeah, it's a very good result. And we really appreciate him for doing this. That's quite a little tricky case to do, but he has done it very well.
Thanks.
Yes, sir. It's a very well done actually. Really, I have to congratulate you. The first initial challenge, as you told, that's angulation. Angulation was a difficult one almost. It was not very favorable. Since our microcatheters are there, we are able to do. In the olden days, when microcatheter was not there, just with the balloon, we tried to do so many things. That's still, even regular lesions also there was a difficulty. It's quite well done. That's Caravel didn't cross the distal lesion because you did with the same wire.
Actually, Caravel was a bit difficult, sir, but I had to just keep pushing it a little bit more because I didn't have a crosshair or a soreness in this thing. So I just thought probably I'll just try to push it a little bit hard. With a little bit of balloon dilatation, I just support balloon display. I didn't show that. Then I just tried to push in a little bit, and but somehow the second lesion was a bit tough, sir. So that's why I didn't even exchange the wire.
Yeah, that's why. That's why I'm asking why didn't you exchange? Because still we try to most of the times exchange with that. Always the risk of perforation in the distal, na. That's it. But final diameter is very good. By OCT, 3.75 post dilatation. It's an excellent result. The young patient definitely he could benefit with this.
Angina, so I just want to achieve.
Yeah. In fact, the collaterals RCA was not so big and it's not giving so much collateral. That's why
even the bonus injection was absolutely not of useful. So only antegrade channel was alone left out for me.
Yeah, with so many challenges, that's I think you have done a wonderful job.
Thank you, sir.
Arun?
Yes, it's an excellently done case. I have to congratulate you. The only thing is the cyan blue, if you try to meddle within a CTO, it will badly dissect and it will create a dissection plane. So always when you think this is a CTO and we are going with, you have to choose a CTO wires. So after cyan blue dissects, the only wire which can redirect and go into the true luminous Gaia only because of this redirectional capacity. You have chosen Gaia with a microcatheter. Everything is done picture perfect in this case.
This cyan blue, I just chose to negotiate it with the septals as for the initial step of just to take the microcatheter. Then subsequently change to
okay, right. That's for taking the microcatheter.
So that's it.
So I thought you meddle the CTO.
No, sir, I didn't go near.
Then it's okay. Right. Yeah, sure.
Padmanabhan?
Yeah, excellent result. No comments. Good. How about the RCA? Were there collaterals to RCA?
I didn't show the RCA. It was a diffusely diseased vessels. Absolutely no collaterals. And no collaterals from conus also. Probably what I could have done is if I would have taken another microcatheter into the circumflex and injected from the circumflex, I could have seen some homocollaterals filling the distal LAD. But maybe I just wanted to keep it a bit, if I was not able to direct my entry into the LAD, probably I would have gone for the second option of injecting from the circumflex. Sometimes selective circumflex injection also gives a distal collateral, but RCA was absolutely of diffusely diseased vessels.
Okay, I have a comment on this.
Yes,
now, there is a catheter called the Crusade catheter.
Yes, sir. Crusade.
Crusade wouldn't have been the right one for this.
Sir, Crusade is that double lumen.
Exactly.
Yes, sir. Crusade actually it was not available in our desk, sir, because that would have very well directed into the septal one wire and the other one.
Actually, Ilayaraja directed me to that catheter once. Dr. Ilayaraja directed me. This is how the Crusade looks.
Yes, sir.
You go into the septal and
Yes.
then you have a side port in the Crusade. You direct it, it will go into your CTO straight away. It will go directly into your point where you have to go. So actually, you have to get into the septal, use the Crusade. I think, wouldn't that, if you had it, probably that would have been a good
Yes, sir.
choice of catheter in
Yes.
micro catheter for that. And once you have crossed in with that, you have the direction inside. Then probably you have to do all these extension and then go ahead and change it. I think it should be good. That's just probably just a suggestion. But ultimately, what you have done, the proof of the pudding is to eat it. So you have done a good result and shown a good you're imaging. You have shown a good result. I think that is perfectly done. So I think whatever you have done, I think you have gone ahead and done the right thing and got the right results. Finally, the imaging looks pretty good.
Yes.
Very well deployed and a good MLA that you have achieved. Finally, I think that should take care of the case. Any other comments on this?
Did you do pre-OCT after post-dilatation, after dilatation?
Because actually it was a very small vessel. Initially, the vessel was not growing much, and then I didn't want to move in because I had a CTO. I mean, I had a field XT wire down, so I didn't want to take in a OCT and then inject. And so, and the wire had a loop in the distal, so I thought, okay, first I will complete the procedure, and then after post-dilatation, I can optimize as much as possible. After the post-dilatation OCT, I always have time at that point of time, so I didn't do it pre-dilatation.
Prem, that's a very understandable feeling. All of us do that. We are more worried. You have to finish the case.
Yes.
Get into trouble and land up with the perf. I think it's much worse to deal with.
Yes,
so I think fair enough. And I think ultimately you did a good job with your OCT and showed that. But at some point, once you're post-dilated, you could have still done it if you want. But that's okay. Ultimately, time matters. Your radiation, everything matters. So I think it's important to show a good results. Sriram, anything you want to say, Sriram?
No, sir. No, sir.
Thank you.
Sriram, Vimal.
No, sir. Nothing from my side, sir.
Durga, madam.
Hi, that was nice.
You become very quiet suddenly. I thought you've gone.
No, I'm here. Video is here.
Right. That brings us to the last presentation, and I invite Pramod to call in Sriram for his presentation. Pramod?
Yeah, I'm very happy to introduce Dr. V. Sriram, and he is an assistant professor of cardiology in SRM Medical College in Kattangulattur, Chennai, and he'll be talking mainly about OCT, the crucial rod map. Okay, Dr. Sriram.
Sir, I'm not able to share my screen. Is somebody else?
No, I've just stopped. You give up 10 seconds and then you try again. Now you try.
Yeah, sir. Yeah, sir. I'm getting it. Sir, am I audible, sir?
Yeah, but you're good.
Presentation is visible, sir?
Clean.
Yeah. Good evening to all the senior cardiologists, and thanks for Abbott Prabhakar sir for giving me this opportunity again. And I'll rather, for want of time on a Sunday, I'll just jump into my case. My patient was a 63-year-old diabetic female patient. She had an on and off angina since 1 week. This was the presentation ECG, which was taken outside. You can see a deep T wave inversions in the anterior anterolateral leads. And when she presented to us, this was the ECG. You can see there are dynamic changes. The T waves had become upright in the V1 to V3 leads, and the T wave inversion depth has decreased in the anterolateral leads. So with this underlying ECG, she had a normal LV function and a normal renal function. And so with this, we went ahead with the angiogram. This is the angiographic picture. You can see through the right radial approach, we took an angiogram. You can see there is a 70 to 80% critical ostial disease of the LAD, and the L6 ostium is pretty good with a wide angle of the LCX. And there is some diffuse 20 to 30% disease in the proximal LCX, and the distal LCX also has 60 to 70% diffuse disease, and it was essentially a left dominant circulation. This was the cranial view. You can see a short segment tight lesion in the mid LAD, and you can see a 2 to 2.25 mm decent sized diagonal. That was the only major diagonal for that LAD circulation. You can see a tight 90% short segment stenosis in the diagonal too. This was RCA. RCA was essentially non-dominant So it was theoretically a triple vessel disease, but for us, essentially we wanted to tackle the culprit vessel, and the patient was also willing for only for PCI. So we did an elective angioplasty. So this was the right femoral approach. We took a 7F EBU3 guide, and we were able to wire the diagonal as well as the LAD with a BMW wire easily. We gave a short pre-dilatation of 2 into 8 mm for the LAD lesion just to facilitate the OCT catheter, and we used the same balloon to predilate the diagonal lesion also. So we did not have a bifurcation stenting strategy at the back of our mind initially. We thought we'll just do a pre-dilatation of the side branch because it was less than 10 mm lesion in the side branch, and it was just involving the ostium, and it was around 2 to 2.25 mm vessel. So we did a small pre-dilatation for both the LAD as well as the diagonal, and then we did the D1 dilatation, and then we did a OCT run for the LAD. So before I just move on to the LAD, we thought we'll do a drug-coated balloon for the side branch because there was no any ugly dissections and the TEMI flow was good. We did a small drug-coated balloon for the side branch that was a 2 into 10 mm drug-coated sirolimus saluting balloon. And then this was the result after the drug-coated balloon was introduced into the side branch. Here you can see the side branch stenosis was already previously less than 10 mm in length. Now after the drug-coated balloon was deployed, it is now, almost less than 50% stenosis of the side branch. So we went ahead with the original plan of provisional stenting of the LAD. So you can see the side branch stenosis is less than 50% after the pre-dilatation within the insert picture. So this is the OCT run from the distal LAD. You can see good distal landing zone, and as there is a mixed plaque within the mid LAD. You can see further when we move proximally, you can see a tight lesion with a mixed plaque. Then as we move into the proximal LAD, it's a very big vessel of around 3.2 to 3.3 mm. And as we move again, you can see the ostial LAD lesion being very critical. And we are moving into the left main now. You can see some amount of calcium in the left main with a decent lumen area. So the lesion length was around 42 mm when we measured from the distal up to the left main. So these are the OCT findings which helped us. The distal landing zone reference zone was around the diameter was around 2.6, and you can see the minimal luminal area was around 1.6 where we had initially pre-dilated the lesion. The MLA was around 1.6 and with a mixed plaque. And you can see the ostial LAD is showing a mixed plaque with some amount of calcium, not a very significant calcium, and a very significant luminal compromise of around 2.41 mm squared. So the other data we got from the, so we thought we will do a two-stent strategy with a left main to LAD crossover stenting. So the initial stent will be deployed in the mid LAD covering the initial tight lesion. So again, using the OCT data, you can see the right bottom picture. You can see where we wanted to land the first stent, the proximal LAD. The lumen area was very good, 7.98, with some amount of lipid burden there. And the diameter was around, mean was around 3.2 and the maximum diameter was around 3.3. And you can see the distal left main as shown in the left bottom picture. You can see the area is around 8.4. It's a pretty good area for the distal left main with a small calcium there at the 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock position and some amount of lipid within the plaque. And you can see the proximal left main reference area is around 3.9. And so with this, we went ahead with the provisional stenting. A 2.75 into 28 mm drug-eluting stent was deployed, positioned across the lesion, and you can see the diagonal is still flowing very well. Now we have deployed the stent. So after deploying the stent, again, there was some amount of pinching of the diagonal. Sorry, there was some amount of pinching of the diagonal. Again, it was looking like the initial angiographic lesion. But still, we did not want to go ahead with the bifurcation stenting. We wanted to stick on with the original provisional stenting strategy. So we took out the jailed wire and wired the LCX. Now, since we knew by the OCT that the proximal LAD was around 3.2 to 3.3 in dia, so we optimized the proximal 10 to 12 mm of the stent with the 3.25 into 8 mm NC balloon. So these are all the. From the data we got from the OCT, we were able to initial 10 to 12 mm of the stent we posed LAD. We did not go anywhere near the diagonal or the mid LAD. So this was optimized, and we knew the LAD, osteoproximal LAD will be definitely around 3.5. So with a good amount of confidence, we took the same balloon into the osteal LAD, and we pre-dilated the lesion, LAD osteal lesion, with a 3.25 into 8 mm balloon. So you can see the L6 is still flowing. There's no any plaque shift within the L6, and the osteal LAD has given away a bit. So with this, again we took a we again went for a provision stenting from a left main to LAD, since there was no any worsening of the L6 flow or any plaque shift. So we took a 3.5 into 18 mm drug-eluting stent from the left main to LAD. There was some amount of plaque within the mid shaft of the left main, so we covered that plaque also. And there is some good amount of 2 to 3 mm of left main left within the left, beyond the after the guide catheter. So this stent was deployed. So this is the initial shoot after the deployment of the left main to LAD stent. Then we took out the jail wire, recrossed it, and then we did a pot using a 3.75 into 8 mm balloon. Because we had landed quite a bit of stent in the left main. We took a 3.75 into 8, which was available in our shelf. With 3.75 into 8 balloon, we did a pot for the left main stent, as well as there was a bit of we had covered the osteal LAD also. So we did again a OCT run after this. You can see some amount of haziness within the diagonal with some amount of pinching. The stents look expanded very, angiographically well. So this was the second OCT run. So you can see the distal most edge of the stent is very well expanded. There's no any stent edge dissection. As we move towards the mid part of the stent expansion is only around 69%. With the MSA, what we have gained is only 3.87. This was not, fitting into the Illumin 3 criteria. And again, as we move proximally, the overlapping stents are good. The stents are approximated very well. They are opposed very well. And as we move further into the left main, you can see the stents are very well opposed. And then again, in the 2 to 3 studs of the proximal part of the stent in the left main was malopposed. So this left main malopposition was again corrected with the 3.75 same balloon, which was, we went up to 20 atmospheres for the, left main, proximal edge of the stent. And the mid part stent expansion was corrected with the 3 into 15 mm NC balloon. We went only till the, up till the nominal pressures. So this is the mid part of the stent where the stent expansion was corrected by a 3 into 15 NC balloon. So this was the final OCT run. No edge dissection. The stent expansion from 16 we have achieved around 70 to 80%. The MSA is around 4.3, though the MSA, which according to the criteria we need, is 4.5, which I will be telling you later. We thought the stent expansion compared to the previous one, we have achieved a good 70 to 80% expansion. And the red marker in the longitudinal view is just the osteal LCX, which is coming up. That's why it is showing as if there is a malopposition. Actually, the osteal LCX is good. There's no any pinching. The ostium of the LCX looks good. And the proximal edge left main stent malopposition is also corrected in this. So these were the data which, OCT analytical data which we got. So we can see the distal edge of the stent, the lumen area is around 5.02, it's very good. And there is no any edge dissection. And as in the longitudinal view, we saw that the MSA was around 4.3, which was little suboptimal. And in the osteal LAD, we achieved a very good lumen area of around 7.74. And outside the diagonal, as in the left bottom picture, you can see that's the reason for the haziness we were able to see, was clearly evident on the OCT. We can see some amount of thrombus. We were maintaining the ACT around 250 to 300 throughout the procedure. But there was some moment, the haziness was due to thrombus, we felt, as per this OCT finding. But the lumen area adjacent to the diagonal was around 5.83 in the LAD. And this is the LAD LCX. You can see the LCX ostium is quite good. The LAD ostium has been, covered by the stents very well. And the, lumen area is 9.57. And the left main also, we have achieved a good lumen area from 10.28. And the stent has expanded to its maximum, around 3.7 mm. So because of this thrombus, which was, which we are able to correlate with the haziness in the diagonal, we did not go for further higher pressure balloon dilatations near the diagonal. So this was the previous one. After the initial stent was deployed, because the expansion was 69, 3.87. Then we post-dilated with the 3 mm balloon. We we have achieved, optimal, expansion of 70 to 80%, though theoretically speaking, it should be more than 80 at least. But due to this haziness was increasing in every angiographic shot, we did not want to over dilate with the NC balloon in that area. So this was the final result. This haziness persisted in the diagonal, but the LED D1 stents were appearing good. The distal edge of the stent did not have any obvious dissections. The LCX is flowing very well. There's no any compromise. And a good few millimeters of the left main is also available for future interventions, as well as we had to cover from the left main to LAD because LCX was diseased. So for any future interventions of the LCX, we thought we should better crossover from the left main to the LAD. So, my topic was roadmap. So I just wanted to show how OSA is definitely a roadmap in deciding our interventions. So pre-PCA definitely it helped us in this case to decide on the stent diameter as well as the balloon diameters, and stent deployment, whether we should go about at nominal pressures or supranominal pressures. Definitely OCT gives you an idea. Post PCA also it helped us definitely, especially because it was a left main stenting. And these are all the stepwise algorithm in an OCT, how OCT criteria should be employed during pre-PCI, during stent implantation, and post-PCI. Just to give a shortcut, the main important thing that we always tell in OCT is MLD max algorithm, which everybody should remember. That is the pre-PCI OCT. We should always, the OCT helps in identifying the morphology of the lesion. Once the morphology is identified, a proper, pre-dilatation using various devices, and the length of the lesion, especially selecting the proper landing zones, diameter of not only the stent but also the diameter of the balloons, which has to be used, also will be given by the OCT. Post PCA, as you know, OCT gives us a very good picture. Especially, we should not have any medial dissection. Apportion and expansion should be good. So in short, the MSA stent expansion, based on the stent expansion, MSA should be around 4.5 for a non-left main, and 80 to 90% of the average reference lumen area should be achieved. If the dissection, if there is an edge dissection of less than 60-degree arc and the flap limited to the intima, less than 3 mm of length, we can leave it alone. Yes, if the flow is not compromised. If there is around, some amount of tissue prolapse, you have to have an extended DAPT in your mind. And lesion coverage, wherever we land the stent, it should be, the lumen area should be at least 4.5, considering, leave apart the small vessels, and there should not be any lipid-rich plaque where we land the stent. So that is more important for a proper long-term stent, success. And if there is smaller portion of around less than 200 microns, it can be left alone, depending on the left main or ostial AD. If it is more than 200 microns, it should be definitely treated. Thank you, sir. That's it. Sir.
Thanks, Sriram. That was a very colorful presentation of OCT, and your thank you also came out very well. Now, we have heard so many of these OCTs being presented and spoken, but nobody spoke so passionately about OCT and how it has helped them in their case. Arumugam, your comments?
Yeah, he has shown a very excellent way, sir, step by step, and it's actually a teaching presentation. Actually, in fact, very, very good presentation. End results is very good, and there is no doubt about that. The patient is going to do well, definitely. So I have a small doubts actually. So the drug-eluting balloon diagonal, really, is it you do use like before stenting the LAD or after, if at all necessary? That's one question. Other one is, it's a dominant LCX. I didn't see the initial wires in the LCX, but anyway, later you wired that also. And since you have a OCT, of late, I've been watching from all our Western, our Indian senior colleagues also, when they do LAD LM stenting, crossover stenting, if there are some stress in the LCX ostium, they tend to dilate it, even though the TIMI flow is good, everything, because in future, they tend to see that like when endothelialization happens, so some stenosis happen. In fact, double lumen LCX osteomandal have been noticed actually. So only those two things. Otherwise, the excellent results and step by steps, very, very educative, and it's very well done.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
I think the point that you have said is very well taken. I think it's the planning for the future, but he has opted some other choice. He always felt that it is going to be all right It's not going to close the vessel because it's floating in the vessel, and he may be able. It's a large stent with the. So I think he may be able to get in and cross it, and he has also given room to place one more stent into the left vein. He's given a gap for dilatation there also. I think it's fair enough. I think ultimately, he has enjoyed his OCT in this case. That's what I could really understand. His pre and post, and it really made a lot of difference in the sizing and two-stent strategy, and subsequently post dilatation. I was just thinking, wow, is a 3.75 going to be enough? But ultimately, it showed the 3.75 is the correct size. So that's where imaging and other things come into picture, and it was perfectly there. Arun?
We have to have time for planning of the procedure. That's more important, especially when you're going to handle left main. We definitely have to have, a backup plan within our mind. That is one thing. And especially if you are seeing a short left main with an ostial LAD or an LCX, better to go for a left main to LAD stenting, and then plan your bailout strategy based on whether the plaque shift is happening or not. So short left main, in my case, I had a long left main, so I was able to plan it properly. If I had a short left main, I would have definitely went for a provisional left main to LCX or left main to LAD stenting. Suppose if there is a plaque shift or if there is a luminal compromise of the daughter vessel, then maybe bailout stenting. We should have all the backup plan within our mind, sir. That is more essential when we are dealing with a left main.
One point about OCT, I landed myself in trouble. I had a patient where I had planned the OCT for the LAD, but there was a tight RCA lesion, so I used it for the RCA also. RCA was not very tight. Matlab, it can cross, but it's not going to be very bad. Reasonable guide engagement. I wired, crossed it, then I tried doing an OCT, and literally nothing was possible. No images. If you are planning an OCT, make sure that your catheter is well engaged.
Yes, correct.
Because unless you push the contrast inside, or you want to do a saline OCT or whatever, you're not going to get the images.
Yes, sir.
So if you are planning an imaging with OCT, make sure that your guide catheter sits properly. Otherwise, you're in a mess if you're doing an OCT. IVUS may not matter much because you're not going to inject anything. So I think that's something that you must remember when you're doing because it was mainly for the left side. But right, since I had an OCT catheter and I did on the right, and then I realized, okay, this is the mess that I'm doing. So I ditched the OCT. It was not required actually. Since it was there, I thought I'll do it. Because actually what happened, I don't know whether I've told this before. There was a case that was presented in Twitter by Mamas. He's the guy who comes regularly for Tejas Patel program. He presented a case, LAD stented, and everything was looking fine. He asked how the image was, how it looks. All looks. Everybody said all looks fine. One day later, he posted the OCT for that. OCT shows distally more than 6 degree of dissection. I had only one question. I said, why did you do an OCT for this case? It looks so good. He said he images all cases because you don't know where you're going to get into trouble. So he says, I make it a point to try to image for every case. But there it's paid by the NHS. So he says he's in this center, he images all his cases. It might be sensible, as and when possible, if the patient can do it, you can still go for imaging because you don't know the edge dissections and other things which cannot always be picked up by angiography. Padmanabhan?
Yeah, very good. Excellent presentation, meticulous presentation, I would say. Teaching. Thank you.
Sriram will make a great teacher. The way he presents with passion, I think he'll make a great teacher. Wonderful. Pramod?
It's a very good presentation. But Sriram, you should not have been too much carried away with the diagonal, thrombus. You could have optimized the LAD a little more better. That's what I felt.
The other point that Arumugam was making was the drug-eluting balloon in the beginning. Now, what if you had diagonal subsequently and the drug-eluting balloon goes to waste? Suppose you had pinched the diagonal critically with the flow being compromised at the end of your stenting.
Yes, sir.
You may have to have stented the diagonal.
Yes.
If that was the case, your drug-eluting balloon goes 30,000 rupees down the drain.
But that is a down point in any drug-coated balloon, sir. Suppose if you are compromising the flow after a drug-coated balloon, definitely you have to stent that. So with all that in mind, only we went.
Not related to that. In this, if you had a vessel where if you had compromised the vessel falling, there was a little bit of compromise which you showed beautifully as thrombus. So it's going to be medically managed. But otherwise, if you had had a thing, which was what Arun was alluding to. So I think if you had had a pinching significantly, you may have to have again opened it up and you would have used strategy. Probably tap there would have worked.
Yes, sir.
Any comments? Ramesh has come back again. Anything you want to say, Ramesh?
Because he has left the ostium, whether there is an increased risk of restenosis later. Left main osteum I think we left alone without stenting. But usually I don't leave. I actually cover up to the osteum the stent if I'm putting a dress. So anyway, what is the incidence of restenosis if you don't stent the osteum?
He didn't have a disease. That's what I thought. I think he did the imaging and showed that there was no disease there. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
That's why we landed the stent there, sir, because imaging did not show any significant disease there. I think it is, I mean, it is feasible to land in the midst of the osteum, no, sir. I mean, LAD, I mean, left main, no, sir. If at all, if it is not diseased.
Durga, I wanted to say something. What was that?
Yeah. See, actually, there are much data to show that one stent strategy is better compared to two stent strategies. So if you can leave the osteum, it is good for the patient. It's okay. It has better outcomes actually in the long run. So it is okay. And what's your plan for the L6? Just a doubt.
No, L6. I mean, previously it was planned to be on medical management. It was not showing any significant disease.
See, it's borderline lesion. I agree.
Yeah.
I would like to have an FFR for that. So that would have been better.
All those things, Durga madam.
You don't have an FFR.
No, we have.
We do FFR in most cases rather than OCT. Like FFR has become like.
But we wanted to handle the culprit vessel, and patient was willing for angioplasty. We wanted to keep it simple.
No, I agree that because you have touched the left main now, you should have been very clear. Like LCX is insignificant. Because
maybe I should have done an OCT from the LCX.
Yeah, OCT will not give a functional data. So I think FFR to L6 followed by left main stenting.
True. That is correct. Yes.
That's the point I was discussing, Sriram, actually.
Yes, sir.
FFR is okay. Even otherwise, normal FFR also,
yes,
that's a bit controversy. Some operators like favor it. Suppose there are one or two strats are there, even normal FFR also, they tend to dilate that LCX osteum.
Yes, sir.
So that make it a single lumen without strats there, because some strats are crossing mean endothelialization happens actually. Yes, so it causes stenosis of the osteum. So it's like some operators do that, some operators recommend others. Okay. So leave alone FFR. This part actually FFR of course positive mean we have to do that. Even FFR negative also like to dilate the osteum of LCX.
Yes, sir.
That's actually still it's going on the discussion.
But if you do that, then you'll have to go for a kissing. So it is how that's L6 osteum needs to be managed with a kissing. So that can be done, which some people advocate, but we don't have data for that.
But a dominant LCX, I will always recommend to keep the struts open, because a dominant LCX, there is down lane, there is some disease. And as Armons had told, it's always better to keep the struts open in left main to LAD crossover if it's a dominant LCX.
More so when you have a borderline lesion. That's fine. It's okay. I think he's kind of accepted ischemia trial results and said this doesn't require an intervention. It's not going to get into problems. So without getting into
excellently done case, there is no doubt about it.
No, I think it's fair enough. I think he is borderline lesion, not looking very bad, and I think it's good enough for the probably Vimal's strategy of 40 milligrams rosuvastatin and a dual antiplatelet therapy with prasugrel or what was that? Ticagrelor. I think
sure,
that should be good. Any other comments from others?
Yeah, one question. If there was no ACT, still the strategy would have changed in taking the balloons in the stent?
OCT.
If there were no OCT, but strategy would have still changed, taking the balloons. I still feel we could have taken the same stents, balloons. Probably the left main would have dilated with a 4 millimeter balloon, as you said. That made probably, if there were no OCT. Question to Sriram.
Yes, sir. I mean, because we had the OCT, we did not chase the numbers also even in OCT also. Once we tried to see the OCT under expansion, we tried to chase it because of the data, whatever whichever we got from the OCT, we did not chase the numbers even in the OCT. Strategy would have been same, but we were confident enough to use the balloons and the overlapping areas and other. Yes, sir.
Very good point, Raghunavan. What you said, I think we would have gone for a 4, not for a 3.75. But I think he had one issue with that. I think the proximal most part of the stent was not expanded, and he was able to do it. Probably we kept the marker a little inside, scared and all those things, the buzz, the stent boost and moving and all that. Or maybe patient took a deep breath like Dr. Durga's case and jinxed him. So that is also likely. So all these things could happen. I think we'll call the meeting to a close at this point if there are no further comments. I wish to thank all our chairpersons and moderators, Pramod, Arumugam, Padmanabhan, Arun Prasad, and all the speakers, Vimal, Ramesh, Durga, Dr. Durga, Dr. Prem, and did I miss out anybody? Vimal, Dr. Vimal, Sriram. Thank you so much. I think it was a good variety of cases with a lot of learning, a lot of points to learn and a lot of issues to get over with, and excellent teaching from Sriram. And thank you so much. Thanks to Abbott also for bringing all of us together on this Sunday evening. We managed to keep you for no extra time. 8:31, we are closing the meeting. Thank you so much. Thanks to all of you for attending and being with us.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Very much.
Thanks to all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Have a nice evening.